Straw is a new movie on Netflix now, directed by the great Tyler Perry. He made it a movie I think that came out last Christmas called The 6888, which if you haven't seen, you should see, and I did a rant on that one. Straw is a film that I think is better. And Straw is one of those films that is called that because essentially this is the woman's last straw. I think that actually says that in the poster. And it is about a woman who, I think her name is Janaya, and she has this little kid named Arya. And at the beginning of the film, you are shown through a lot of things that this woman is dirt poor. I mean, it's a good series of shots of establishing shots showing how she lives, how she wakes up with her daughter, and how she gives her a bath. He gives her daughter a bath even though she's probably old enough to bathe herself. Apparently her daughter Arya has seizures. And there's a strange scene where Arya is playing with this science project, which is a bunch of batteries and lights in the tub. And I kind of went okay, that's just dangerous. You should know not to do that. The whole reason why that scene is there is to set up a plot point, is what this is. And so, anyway, so she gets her kid to school, and her kid says, I need $40 so I can be on a different sort of school lunch program because they put me on the poor kids lunch program. Not only that, they announced that I was going to be on the poor kids lunch program. And I got the feeling the system is the target of this film in case you haven't figured it out. But this will be very apparent as I talk about more of the plot points. Now, Janaya takes her kid to school and she's ready to go to work. But before she's about ready to go to work, her landlord comes out and it says, "I'm going to throw out all your stuff at the end of the day if you don't pay me." And the first thing Janaya says is "I'm going to get my paycheck today. I will pay you then." And so Janaya goes to work, where she works at a grocery store and is very much underappreciated. In fact, you are meant to hate her boss. Her boss is a real jerk. You absolutely have to hate this boss. And this is very important that you hate this boss. So at one point in time, Janaya gets called out and she has to leave her job to go to the bank to get money for her kid's school lunch program so she can go and pay off her, her stuff. She'll pay her landlord, just cash her paycheck just so you can collect all these debts. Apparently she works 2 jobs. I don't know what her second one is. But in the process, she gets kind of caught in a little bit of a fender bender with some guy who turns out to be a cop. He's off duty, and then another cop pulls her over. And this cop, the off-duty one, threatens her. Basically says, "I'm going to look for an excuse to blow your head off." And it's and this is clearly, the problem is this is happening. I think that's what this film really works, because this is one of those films where a lot of bad things are happening to one character all at once, and I don't feel emotionally manipulated with this. Granted, this film really messes with you emotionally because this is happening somewhere. There's a person like this who's a good character, and they show Janaya being a very good gal who's trying to do her best to be the best mother she can for her daughter, but she just can't make ends meet. That's just the issue. And so here's the thing. She doesn't get back to work in time. She's a lot late, and her boss just kind of fires her. And she says, "Okay, can you give me my paycheck here?" And of course he's going to be a jerk about it. He goes "Nope, we mail out the last paycheck. It's company policy. I can't do anything about it." And she goes, my paycheck's right there. It's "Nope, can't do anything about it." So she actually returns to this guy and demanding her paycheck. And of course he's all "Would you get out of here?" And then what happens is the store is robbed. And these crooks come in, and Janaya is able to fight off one of them, so the other flees. And the store manager assumes that, this was a setup from the beginning. And so the guy just calls the cops and says, "You need to arrest Janaya right now." And so Janaya, who has a gun from when she stole off one of the crooks, just shoots him. Just shoots him right there. And that's not really a spoiler. This happens in the first half hour. So the rest of the film is this character just clinging to straws. And by that, she takes her paycheck off the desk, which has blood on it, and she takes it to the bank and she tries to cash it. And they ask her "Where's your ID?" And she says "It was stolen from me. and I guess it was. I actually didn't really see that happen, but I'm pretty sure it probably did. And she just goes nuts, Janiyah. She just basically says, "Cash my check now," and pulls out that gun and starts threatening the bank teller. And at that point in time, pretty much the guard at the bank manager has to go into full lockdown in here, and then the whole thing becomes a crisis situation. Now, I love films that have a hostage situation. Hostage situations are really great in movies. There was an episode of Daredevil recently that had kind of this going on, and it was my favorite episode of that season. In fact, if you watch any episode of that Daredevil show, Born Again, watch that episode. I've done a rant on it. But in this case, what made this different is that every character that was in this hostage situation understood that main character, which I really liked, and they all had sympathy for her. And as it turns out that when Janiyah is like on the phone trying to explain to police what is happening, there's a detective outside, a black woman, who totally understands this person's situation and sort of becomes their sort of kind of moral compass / somebody they can rely on type of an ally scenario, because you can see like what's happening with the police forces coming in, and all the white officers and all the FBI officers come in. They just go like, we're gonna go in with gas and guns blazing and gas and just deal with the situation. And what's worse is, remember how I said there was that off-duty cop that made that terrible remark against her earlier? He's actually outside. And when she sees that, she absolutely cannot surrender, even though she kind of wants to. And it's kind of, and here's the thing, there are some things that just are really great, that Janiyah she's not heartless. You just feel like she's kind of snapped. This is at her breaking point. Everybody has been at kind of like this, and just maybe it's not severe as this. For this film, I actually gave this film a lot of points. I felt like this is the plight of a lot of low-income people. This is what they have to deal with. And it's the plight of a lot of black women as well. And I just went like, oh gosh, this is just, and it's heartbreaking to watch. It is really hard to watch this film, honestly. I have to say, I really like this film for that. And Janiyah is actually a very complicated character. When she knows she's in a hostage situation, she gets chairs for all the hostages to sit down. When one of the hostages starts having a diabetic attack or whatever, I don't know the proper word for it, but immediately sends her out. Just that said. And then the bank president's there is honestly really sympathetic character and basically knows what Janiyah is going through, and she actually comes back to help Janiyah, even though she could have easily just left. And that's something that I think is really good in this film, that this community stands together. At one point, when Janiyah's on the phone, not really making demands, she's just trying to get her check cashed. In fact, when the cashier was giving her all this other money, she goes, I don't want all that money, I just want my check cash. And she's obviously clinging to this hope that it just isn't there anymore. And yeah, it's a frail straw she's clinging to. And so there's sort of that issue going on, and someone in one of the hostages makes a cell phone recording of her, and she gets a lot of supporters. Janiyah gets all these supporters outside the bank with signs saying like, we love you, Janiyah, we support you, and stuff like that. So this film just gets very interesting that way. I really enjoyed this film for this. Now, I'm going to get to the 9-minute point in which I'm going to drop a major spoiler. If I drop a major spoiler, I would have to say, I would have given this film 9 out of 10, but unfortunately I'm going to give it a 6. And the reason why is because the film decides at the last minute to drop a twist-ending plot point that I absolutely hated. As it turns out, remember how I said that Janiyah has a daughter named Arya? Well, Arya apparently died, like the night before all this events in the film took place. Yeah, she had one of her seizures and she didn't make it. So everything else that happened during this day was her hallucinating the fact that she had a daughter when she didn't. And I forgot to mention that I think CPS was going to take her daughter away. I also forgot to mention her daughter built that science project. Apparently people thought that was a bomb, so that was the reason why she was able to hold people hostage that much. I wish this film hadn't dropped that plot point, otherwise it would have been such a great film. Oh, I really wish it hadn't done that.